Boker Tov, everyone. One second here. Okay, Shalom. Boker Tov, everyone. It's Rabbi Eric Solomon here in Raleigh, North Carolina, offering some morning Torah again. It's Sunday, March 29, hoping to offer some solace on another day under COVID-19. I want to thank you again all for your responses and support. If you've been giving me some good feedback on how to do this without the lawnmower, and hopefully I'm trying to do it. I even bought a tripod, trying to keep it more stable. Even if one person gets some solace and comfort, maybe in some inspiration, for me, it's the least I can do is to offer an offering in the spirit of the book of Leviticus. So, to continue. Book of Leviticus, we're now in the second Torah portion of that book. It's called Parshat Tzav. Tzav means command, or connected to a commandment. And once again, it continues describing sacrifices, different ways sacrifices were done. Describes the ordination, kind of how Moses and Aaron and other priests became in charge and kind of, ordained, to be leaders and to serve the community while we were wandering the desert, our sacrifices. And there's one particular verse I want to focus on in chapter 6. It's a famous verse, and a verse I love and many of us love, which says that the fire on the altar, so you can imagine there are different altars in the course of a tabernacle and later the temple in Jerusalem. And in that central place, there's a fire on the altar. The fire primarily are used for sacrifices, to burn up the offerings. But it says specifically, and it repeats itself a little bit in the verses, that the fire on the altar shall never go out. It should basically be eternally running. So it says it should never go out. It should burn continuously. It's redundant. And many rabbis ask the question, what does it mean it's always going? Why continuously? Why is it even needed, the fire? So if we look at the tabernacle, the prayer center of the Israelite people as we are wandering through the desert, and at the core of that is our worship and our prayer and connection to God. And in that place symbolically is this fire. I mean, it's not symbolic, it actually is the fire, but it's a symbol. Then the fire has practical purposes, as I noted, but it's also kind of symbolic of the human being and our soul. The idea being that there's a fire inside that is burning. And that fire needs to burn continuously, all the time. The fire can never go out. And so if you look at that more metaphorically, it means that within each of us, there is a potential fire. I mean that in the positive way. Kind of a desire for life, a passion for life, a desire to serve, a kind of mission inside of us, of our being. What do we want to do? How do we animate our lives? And that fire needs to be continuous. It can never go out. Even more so, fire, and I'm no scientist, but in order for fire not to go out, it needs wood, and it needs to be tended, and it has to have oxygen that continues to feed it, or the fire will go out. So, of the many different metaphorical teachings of fire, one of them is that it only continues if something is feeding it to continue. And really, the lesson I think I'll bring home for us might be obvious, is that during this time when we are clamored down, sheltering in place in our particular county, and really in more and more of the country, the question for us to really look inside is, what is our fire? How do we feed our fire? And how do we ensure that our fire burns continuously? Especially when what might usually feed our fire may not be accessible. And for many of us, like extroverts, what feeds our fire is other people. Even frankly, introverts in this time, to some degree, interaction for most people feeds our fire. When we look at our lives and what we're doing, what we're serving, how we work, what feeds our fire is to some degree Maybe it's our families. Maybe it's our friends. Making a difference on some level, helping others. You know, I remember when I first moved to Raleigh, and Rabbi Jenny and I, we bought our first home. It was a huge moment. It was so exciting. And we had the help of a wonderful realtor in our congregation. And I'd never really worked. I was young. I was still around 30-ish, early 30s. I'd never worked with a realtor before in my life. It was the first time I ever did it. And as we engaged in this, and it was a wonderful experience. It's nerve-wracking for those of you who ever bought a home or apartment or anything. I mean, it's scary. It's anxiety-producing. You know, it transitioned from a business transaction. Now, of course, I was the rabbi of this person, so already we had a different relationship. But still, like, you know, it's a business transaction on a certain level. This is just this person's trying to help us get a home because they want to make their commission, and that's okay. They have to feed their families too. But I realized pretty quickly in the process that for the realtor, this wonderful mensch in my congregation, this wasn't about just selling a house. I mean, first of all, he felt honored to do it to help the rabbis, but put that to the side. You know, there's a difference, and he said something like, there's a difference between selling a house and providing someone a home, a place to dwell, a place to feel, please God, safe, a place to have the most powerful interactions and a sense of loving connection and safety. What he was saying basically, when we put the mezuzah up, which is the special, according to the Torah, the special kind of, scroll of the Torah, and it has an external case you put on the doorposts. You know, he was with us, and we understood what it meant. This is not just some object or place or material being, which it is a material thing, but it's more than that. This is a holy dwelling, please God. And he basically was saying, my job may be on some level to make a commission, make a living, get all the logistics done, fill out the contracts. But my ultimate job is to help people find home in this world. That was his fire. That's what kept his fire going. So bring it back. All of us, I hope, please God, have a fire. And maybe during this time, we're going to discover what that fire is. For some of us, it may just be discovered. And some of us are going to realize how that fire can be challenging to find that fire given the current circumstances. But I think it's a time to reflect on what is our fire and what feeds our fire and what we can do to keep that fire going, even under these circumstances. Maybe that fire going is to do extra calls and reach out to others. During this fire this morning at my synagogue, we're doing a blood drive. To do things, if you're able to do that, to go do errands and groceries, to call people within a congregation who may not know that well, just to reach out to seniors. Do what you can from your home to keep your fire going. It's so critical. And perhaps the greatest pain is when you feel your fire going out. And by the way, it's okay to reach out to others when you feel like you need oxygen for your fire. All right, last teaching about the fire. My teacher's teacher, Rabbi Marshall Meyer, Alav Shalom, great rabbi who revitalized B'nai Jeshurun in New York, where I first was trained, tells a story. I remember hearing about this later, that there's a rabbi and his students back in the old country who were watching the first locomotive come to town, a train. And he brought all the students out to watch and see the train come into the small shtetl in Poland or whatever. It's kind of implied. And the students are watching the train and see how it comes in and all the different things. And he pulls them to the side afterwards, seeing the train go and leave the station. He says to them, what did you learn about the train? And some kids are saying, wow, I see that it moves, the wheels go. I see that there's smoke coming out. I see that, that there's some kind of cargo in it. I see that it moves fast. I'm learning how the train. He said, all those things are amazing. He said, but you know what I think is the most important? The students say, yeah, what do you say, Rabbi? Rabbi said, the way that locomotive is moving is because there's this fire. See that fire over there? You can kind of see the smoke, and there are people picking coal and sticking, shoveling it in to keep that going. And he said, and you see how that locomotive, because of that coal and because of that fire, is dragging dozens of cars behind it. I said, yeah. And he said, what you learn here is that one car with a fire in its belly can carry all those cars behind it. And what he said was, it's one person with a continuous fire in his or her belly, in their belly, that can carry all kinds of other people with it. That's a message for leaders. It's really a message for all of us, because all of us can carry others and bring others if we have a fire in our belly. And that fire in the belly is what's key. So we have to work on this time on thinking, what can keep my fire in my belly? What can keep the fire on the altar alive? And that means taking in new things, bringing in oxygen, connecting, learning, never giving up. What can we bring in so that we can give and give out? That's the message of the continuous fire on the altar, in my view. First message of Parshat Tzav. I wish you all, please God, a good day. Another day that hopefully we move closer towards ending this shelter in place, but a safe and healthy day with healthy fire on your altar. Boker Tov.